And now for my next number, I'd like to return to the
classic. Time.
Hey guys, it's Alex back again, and I kind of want to do a reverse thread. It's very weird, I know, a reverse thread. What's a reverse thread? Whoa, it's where you take a thread that somebody's done and you reverse it. Recently, Dave Newton started the album opening tracks thread, which has been done before, and I'm going to do something that I know has been done before, because I've done this before, is the thread about album closing tracks. Yeah, I can't get my words together, but I'm going to do this, album closing tracks. And once again, much like my last video, I'm staying well clear of all the obvious stuff. So Led Zeppelin, When the Levee Breaks, not included in this video. Pink Floyd is Eclipse, not included in this video. I've tried to stay clear of the obvious stuff. There may be a few obvious choices sprinkled throughout, because there's not a lot of album closers that I really wanted to talk about here, but I still managed to find 20. So let's get to this video before I lose my sanity. Yeah. Let me quickly start with the ones I have on CD here. My CD picks, because I don't own these on vinyl yet. Illmatic, Nas. I'm starting with a piece of hip-hop here. I know it's not a wise choice to pick a piece of hip-hop to start a video with, especially in the vinyl community when hip-hop's not the most popular genre. But with Nas Illmatic, you've obviously got It Ain't Hard to Tell. Now, I wanted to talk about this in my album openers, but this actually opens with a song called The Genesis, and not the song New York State of Mind. So I couldn't talk about it then, I can talk about it now. In my top 3 favorite hip-hop albums of all time. Easily. Right? And the song It Ain't Hard to Tell is a major contributing factor to that. Obviously there are Nas albums I pull to listen to way more than I listen to this, but this is probably his best and most solid album to date. So for that, Nas has to get mentioned, and so I'm talking about It Ain't Hard to Tell in this video. I'm also going to talk about this band, which is a band I don't really talk about on my channel a whole lot. Excuse me, because I'm not really a massive fan. That's Oasis. This is What's the Story, Morning Glory. Of course, with the closing track of Champagne Supernova, my personal favourite Oasis song, and maybe the one I really heard that got me into their music. Obviously, this album's also got Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger, but I got this purely for Champagne Supernova, because even though it's 7.5 minutes long, it's a great song and a great way to close off this album, or any album that they wanted to do in general. I absolutely adore the song Champagne Supernova, so I think it's a perfect album closing track, especially for Oasis. But yeah, a band I don't talk about too much on this channel, but yeah, I love that song, so it was going to get mentioned. The final one I'm going to talk about is a band I do love, and a band I don't really talk too much about on this channel, because I know they're not that popular. Or well, they're popular, but they're popular to hate. And you'll see another one of those bands later on in this video too. But I'm going to talk about the song, or the band, excuse me, Linkin Park. In the last video I talked about, in the album openers, they were in my favourite album opening tracks as well. They get mentioned in this one. The song that closes this album is Numb. Probably their most popular song still to date. I don't know many people who don't know that song and don't love that song. Linkin Park were a big part of my upbringing, so when Chester passed away, it hit me hard, and this album was on loop for about 3 weeks. after he passed, because this is easily my favorite album that they've ever done, and Numb is one of the main reasons behind that. Nobody's Listening from the Inside, Break the Habit, Figure 09, Faint, Hit the Floor, Lying to You, just everything on here is solid. But Numb is a song that has always stuck with me, even when I grew out of my Linkin Park phase. And so Numb, to close off this album, of course that's going to get mentioned. Alright, on to the vinyl picks. Another piece of hip-hop here. I apologize. There's not too much hip-hop throughout this video, only a couple of pieces really here and there, but nothing too crazy. But of course I had to talk about Public Enemy, the album Fear of a Black Planet. The track that closes this album is called Fight the Power. And of course, if you know Public Enemy, you know what that song did for them commercially. And yeah, this album, man, I wish this was original, because it is probably my favorite hip-hop album of all time. And Fight the Power is a major thing contributing to that, as well as Can't Do Nothing For You, Man, which is also on this album. But we're talking about the closers. Fight the Power did so much for Public Enemy, and it is a shame you have to listen to this whole album before you can get to that track. But it's a good job. The whole album is solid. So that's why Public Enemy gets spoken of in this video. Fear of a Black Planet. A jazz here, and this is actually not an album, this is an EP, which normally I wouldn't include, but this probably is my favourite way to close anything that this artist has ever done. Kamasi Washington. The track that closes this album is called Truth, and it's a 13.5-minute song that constantly switches up its style. And Kamasi Washington, I've always liked him as a musician, so this is one that I had to grab on vinyl when it came through cheap. And yeah, I just love this album. And Truth is my favourite song on the whole EP, so picking that up was just incredible and something I wanted to do. And yeah, I cannot appreciate this album enough. Or this EP, I guess. But yeah, Kamasi Washington's Truth is another track I love. Next up, some reggae. I picked a few more reggae pieces for this one because I love loads of reggae closing songs. Clinton Fearon, This Morning. The song is not called This Morning. The closing track on this album is actually called We Are One, which is a great way to close this album. As solid as it is, you know, this album is it's 3 years old at this point, as of when I'm filming this, and it still sounds like it came out in the 70s. It's an incredible reggae album, and even if you're not into reggae, it's very easy to listen to, very bass heavy, which is what I loved about this album. But obviously, the way he closed this album out with that song We Are One, incredible. Solid closer. Solid. Up next, one that I think more people will be appreciative of is Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. Hallowed Be Thy Name is the closing track on this album. And of course, I originally only picked this up for Run to the Hills, but I enjoyed the whole album and just was captivated by Hallowed Be Thy Name. So as soon as this album came through my hands, boom, I did not hesitate to swipe it. And I'm not a huge Iron Maiden fan, so for me to show this album, you guys are lucky. No, I'm kidding. Love this album. Absolutely love this album. Up next, what do we have next? Ooh, one of my favorite artists. It's Mr. Stevie Wonder himself. With the track, I Believe When I Fall in Love, It Will Be Forever. Yes, which also closed off the movie High Fidelity, if you know the movie. But yes, there it is. Stevie Wonder. talking book. Stevie Wonder has been one of my favorite artists, even when I was a kid. Man, my uncle used to play Stevie Wonder to me all the time, and that's where my love for Stevie Wonder comes from. And yeah, I just have to show off my Mobile Fidelity pressing of this album every time I can, because I'm that proud of this album. And the fact I saw him live earlier this year, and he didn't play I Believe When I Fall in Love It Will Be Forever, but I'm not surprised because he normally ends his concerts with Superstition anyway. But yeah, there is Stevie Wonder with I Believe When I Fall in Love It Will Be Forever. Next up, not this artist's most popular album, not by a long shot. But don't forget, this list is not set in stone. This list could change next week. It really could. But I've picked Fame by David Bowie as my favorite way to close a Bowie album. Obviously, he's got better albums. This is just one of my favorites. Just because of the Lennon production on here, or the Lennon co-write, I think. Yeah, because Lennon co-wrote a couple of songs on here, but Fame is easily one of my favorite Bowie songs, so of course it's gonna be the one I say is going to be my favorite album closer. So there is David Bowie's Young Americans album. Not his most popular album, not a lot of people's favorites, but probably is mine. I'd probably go as far as to say that it is mine. So yeah, Fame's getting a mention. Next up, Piece of Soul, Will Downing, Mr. Will Downing. This choice is actually inspired by his new EP that he just put out last week, a couple of weeks ago, somewhere like around there. Will Downing, the song his cover of Wishing on a Star closes this album. And he's just put out a covers EP as a tribute to baritone singers, which is not coming out on vinyl till I think about 2020, so that's annoying. But Will Downing's Wishing on a Star is still a brilliant version of that song. I love it, and I love Will Downing as a vocalist, so of course this is getting a mention. Will Downing's Wishing on a Star. Love that one. What do we have next? Oh yeah, another piece of reggae. Peter Tosh. The album closes this. The song that closes this album is called Brand New Second Hand. It's probably his biggest song, but you know, how can you not love Peter Tosh, man? One of the Wailers. I mean, come on. Let's not get this. Let's not throw this album under the radar. Very solid album, and ends it with a very solid track. Love me some Peter Tosh. Those who know me, I couldn't resist not talking about this one. Speaking in Tongues, Talking Heads. Not only is it my favourite Talking Heads album, and is in my top 10 favourite albums of all time, it closes with This Must Be the Place, which is a song that has closed off a few of my DJing sets. When we do 80s nights, This Must Be the Place is a song. Well, this and Take Me Home by Phil Collins always end my sets. And that's another one I forgot to pull for this video, but Phil Collins. But yeah, this is still a very solid album and ends in a very good way. So gotta love Talking Heads there. And of course I could not resist talking about it because it's me, obviously. What next? A band that I could not leave off my list here. I talk about their album openers all the time. I talk about them all the time. I've got their poster in the background there. But I never talk about their album closers, because Arctic Monkeys, their album closing tracks aren't necessarily their best or most famous songs, but 505, which is on this album and obviously closes the album because we're talking about it, is a song that even Arctic Monkeys fans love, despite the fact that this album is very heavy, very indie rock driven, and 505 is very much the opposite of that. Starts off very chilled, very relaxed, and then gets heavy near the end of the song. just a very solid. This is my favorite Arctic Monkeys album, so of course it's getting a mention there. But for what it's worth, 505 is fantastic, and he wrote that song with Miles Kane as well. So yeah, that in itself is incredible. Plus the sentimental value I have behind that song, because he did bring out Miles Kane at the O2 to perform it with him in concert, which was incredible. But yeah, 505 is probably the best way Arctic Monkeys have ever closed off any of their albums. There's a couple of other ones that I like, but none compared to 505 for me. So gotta love that album. Next up, the last piece of hip hop, I believe. Yeah, this is the last piece of hip hop I have to show you. This is Kendrick Lamar with his album Section 80. It's obviously very glossy, so I'm going to try and get rid of as little glare as possible, or get rid of as much glare as possible. The track that closes off this album is called High Power, and it is, without a doubt, one of Kendrick's best songs. Even before he made it huge. I've got to give credit to High Power, because it's the song that not only got me on this album in particular, but also got me to delve deeper into Kendrick Lamar's catalogue. Because early Kendrick stuff is great, and this album showed me that. So yes, High Power by Kendrick Lamar is making my list. Might not make a lot of other people's lists, but it's making mine. Don't worry, there won't be any more hip hop from here on out. Now, this one. If you know this album, you know it. This is probably the most obvious pick I could have gone with. This and a couple of others. But this one in particular, I always talk about Bubba O'Reilly as an album opener, but I always forget about Won't Get Fooled Again, which closes this album. And probably hands down, even my first, I always switch back and forth between my two favorite Who albums, but I just love the way this one opens and the way it closes. It is phenomenal. And to follow up Behind Blue Eyes, how can you just not love that as a way to close this album out? Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. What do we have next? Oh yeah. Eric Clapton, Journeyman, Before You Accuse Me is the song that closes off this album, and what a way it does it. Now you've obviously got his cover of Hound Dog on here, you've got Pretending, you've got Lead Me On, Hard Times, Running on Faith, Anything for Your Love. But I don't think anything is a better way to close off an album in Eric's catalogue than Before You Accuse Me. And this album kind of returned him to his former glory after Phil Collins worked with him in the 80s. This is his return to fame, and well, there's not a bad track on it. Before You Accuse Me is the one that stood out to me the most, so there you go. That's why I'm talking about it here. Alright, next one. This is the other band. When I talked about Linkin Park, I mentioned another band that's maybe necessarily hated, or famously hated, unnecessarily hated, let's say. But I love this band. Now, before you click off this video, let me explain a couple of things. They go hand in hand with Linkin Park for me. They were a huge part of my upbringing. Particularly when I was discovering music on my own, away from my uncle's taste and my parents' taste. Nickelback and Linkin Park were the two bands I discovered. And the song that I heard for the first time from this band is Rockstar, which is also the closing track on this album. Obviously has Photographs on here. Photograph. If Everyone Cares also on here. So, you gotta love this album for what it is. If you're a Nickelback fan, if you're not a Nickelback fan, you're probably hating this right now. But Rockstar is making my favorite album closers, because let me tell you, if I play that in a DJ set, people still go crazy. So even if you're not a Nickelback fan, you like the song Rockstar. Deep down, really. I know you do. Don't lie to me. I know you do. Not too many more to go here. Piece of jazz, another piece of jazz. This is Grover Washington Jr.'s Reed Seed album with the track Lorraine's Dance closing it off. Which, if you're a hip-hop fan, you know Lorraine's Dance was famously sampled by Tribe Called Quest, but we're not getting into that because this album itself, not only is it great and probably my favorite from Grover, but just an incredible piece of work, and he could not have picked a better way to close this album out. And it follows up with his cover of Just the Way You Are, which is just phenomenal. So Lorraine's Dance makes it on this list because I love it that much. Couple more to go here. My last piece of reggae that I'm going to show you guys comes off this album, Bob Marley and the Wailers with Exodus. One Love, People Get Ready is the song I picked. Now, there's a couple of other tracks I could have gone with. It was between One Love and Redemption Song for me by Bob Marley. I ended up going with this one because this is probably the album I listen to more. I love Redemption Song, don't get me wrong, but this is the album I always pull more. So I had to go with it. There's Exodus by Bob Marley and the Wailers. With One Love, People Get Ready, closing that album out. Couldn't ask for a better way. The last choice I'm going with is maybe an obvious choice again, especially from my channel. If you know my channel pretty well, you probably saw this album coming. Maybe not. You might have saw the Stevie Wonder and the Arctic Monkeys coming. But maybe not this. Not necessarily. But I would, again, when it comes to Michael Jackson, I was flip-flopping between a few of his albums, which one I like the closing track of more, whether I liked Smooth Criminal more, or the track that closes Thriller, which I can't bloody think of what it is now, but I ended up going with Smooth Criminal because although this is not my favourite Michael album, like maybe third out of his big four, Smooth Criminal is probably my favourite, one of my favourite Michael songs, and it closes this album off beautifully. So I had to mention that and talk about it. So yeah, I don't care what you think about Michael Jackson. You got to admit his songs are brilliant, absolutely brilliant, amazing musician. Right, woo, 22 minutes, Jesus. All right. We're going to stop this video there because I don't want to ramble on anymore. If you guys want to make a response to this, please do. You don't have to, but please do. I'd love to get this thread going again because I'm interested to know what other people's favourite album closers are. We've seen the openers. Let's see your favourite closers. Alright. So, don't forget, if you're new here, please subscribe. Don't forget to... There is that bell notification down there as well. Click that. That tells you when I upload a video. And yeah, if you're returning to the channel, thanks again for tuning back in. And I will see you all again very, very soon. Peace.